Welcome back, guys, to Let's Build Jurassic World. As you can see in this episode, we complete our T-Rex kingdom by coming inside the enclosure and adding in all the final details, as well as adding this lush kind of deep dense jungle and a T-Rex to occupy it. So as you can see, this is going to be a really busy episode and we're going to build this Rex block for block. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, in the previous episode, we kind of left the enclosure with this really basic jungle inside, because this was kind of a good starting point for me to look at in this episode and see where we can improve it. And to make sure the T-Rex fit before I put in all those improvements, that meant I had to build the Rex first. So in a similar way to when we did the Indominus Rex way back in time, I'm actually going to build this block for block. Because this is such a complex build, I think people would appreciate, if they are building along with this series, to be able to look back and pause each frame and just see and kind of compare to their own build, and obviously take their own interpretations of the Rex or build it exactly as I've done. But I feel that's why this has been recorded and edited a little bit differently, just so you see pretty much every single block being placed. Now, the head is a really good point of scale. Now, I'm not going to describe to you how I build every block, but I'm going to describe my whole thought process behind the way I built this Rex. And it was kind of an interesting one, because it was the same with the Indominus Rex. Because the way Minecraft is, you know, we have these 1 meter by 1 meter blocks, and they either limit detail or let me add detail. So getting a certain scale right was incredibly important to make sure that you get enough detail in the Rex, but it's also not too small or not too big. So even though this one is much bigger than it would be in real life, it's also kind of, I feel, the best size for me in Minecraft to make sure it's got enough detail to fit into one of my builds. Now, for anyone who's seen that Indominus Rex video, you'll see some striking kind of similarities between the build of the Indominus Rex and the build of this T-Rex, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One, because I was so happy with the size, the scale, and the way the Indominus Rex looked at the end of that episode, that I felt it was a great build for me to look back on and actually kind of morph into a T-Rex itself. And I feel this kind of works in two respects as well, because obviously it's just Minecraft scale, like I've said, and all that kind of stuff, it just works so well, but also because we learn that the Indominus Rex is actually a hybrid of the T-Rex. So in many ways I feel this kind of fits into the canon of our world, as well as for the Minecraft build's sake. So with that neck being placed on here, we've actually come to the end of the head, and you'll see there, it's identical on both sides. So wherever it's identical on either side, I'll just do a quick world editing of the other side, because you know how it's built, you just have to reflect the build to the other side. Now here what I start doing is it's kind of a template. Some ways you'll see me do these kind of little templates for my builds, and in this case I did it for the body, because before I started placing all the blocks in, I want to make sure I got a nice curve, a kind of natural look to the spine, and then I'll come in later and do that for the bottom, for the underside as well, just to make sure before I start placing or wasting time really placing these blocks, I want to make sure it's going to work from a design standpoint. So as you can see, before doing any of that, we start moving down. Now, because the Rex is this kind of brown colour, I kind of wanted to limit myself, and you'll notice I've been using these 2 shades of wood. And if you look in my toolbar down at the bottom, you'll see I've got a lot of different blocks that variate this wood, and then obviously a couple of fences here and there. But I feel limited into this 2 shades, you know, making the underside dark and the top side light, and then a couple of bit of variations here and there. It just add a bit more of a natural look to the Rex without it looking too complex. Keeping to these 2 means we don't have loads of different shades of wood everywhere, but it also means that we had that extra bit of natural detail here and there. Now, you can see me combining in the stairs here, and that's because while the Rex is this big, impressive kind of vertical structure, I also kind of want it to be wide and have enough depth and kind of, build to it, make it look as if this is a real creature. So here what I'm working on is the top of the spine and making sure I extend it out far enough, and then also considering that legs are going to be added to this later on, and that's obviously going to make it even wider. So here kind of judging scale here and there was kind of incredibly important to get right. So I do a little bit of editing here and there to that top spine. I just make sure it's kind of a nice smooth kind of gradient over the top and then back down again. And then there you can see I've just simply filled in the rest of that hollow kind of side there to make it that 3 block wide structure. Now, this was a kind of a really difficult bit, and you might notice the editing's a bit like kind of jolty here and there, and that's because I obviously couldn't build this on the fly. So what I've done is, outside of the enclosure, I've already built this Rex kind of in my own time to make sure I got it right, and so for you guys, so I don't waste time really with you guys kind of trying new things out and deleting them, trying new things again. So these little arms here, again, with Minecraft scale, were kind of a difficult thing to grasp, but I feel I did quite a good job of getting them in here. Again, I do a little bit of experimentation here just to get them just right, but to the scale of the whole thing itself, I feel those arms were kind of the smallest they could be while kind of keeping their detail. Now, while we're on the theme of limbs, we move on to the thighs. And now, again, this is judging thickness, judging size, and just judging the whole size of the actual build itself, and making sure these legs look as if they were big enough to hold this huge creature up. Now, with a bit of full disclosure, I'm not 100% happy with these legs. They were kind of a really difficult thing for me to master, but when I say master, I haven't mastered it at all. Like, I do like the way they look, but I feel maybe with a bit of variation here and there, they could have been improved. But the amount of time it was taking me to build this Rex, I was like, I've got to get this video out. So maybe off camera someday I'll come back and edit the Rex a little bit here and there, just for my own sanity. Or maybe you guys can do that if you are following along. But overall, I feel I was happy with them, but they could have been done better. And this isn't due to the size. I think the size is right, but it's the bit where, like the knee bone and where it kind of, the actual leg bit, like I think the thigh was fine, but it's the leg that attaches to the foot I feel could have been vastly improved. But I couldn't really see where. It was one of those where I was looking at it and seeing it wasn't quite right, but I couldn't also see where to fix it. And it might just again be those Minecraft limitations I keep talking about, the certain scales and the certain angles we're restricted to, because we can't have a smooth curve, can we, in Minecraft? So because of that, it added a huge amount of kind of pressure on my build style. But overall, I was happy with them. I went back and looked how I did them on the Indominus Rex and kind of stole that idea straight from there. And I couldn't see a better way of doing them straight off the bat. So as you can see, we've got this kind of small leg here, and then it attaches to a foot, because this right foot isn't going to be resting on the ground in the same way we did that in Indominus Rex. This right foot is going to be slightly lifted off the floor, because I didn't want it to look like a statue. I wanted it to look as if it's moving around the enclosure itself. So as you can see, what we're working on here, we're going to kind of elongate the middle toe out here and make sure it's the right size again and scale, and kind of looking back and just like off camera I keep looking and judging different scales and sizes here and different colour materials using, and overall I feel the feet work well. I think it's just that middle bit of the leg could do with some improving. Now obviously if we've got the middle one in, I've got to do the other two either side. Now actually, really though, overall, while we add in this Rex here, there's not much more narrating to do to this foot, but I feel like as we zoom out and we can see the woodland around, there is a big need for that overhaul I do of the jungle towards the end of the episode. And I'd advise, if you aren't going to stick around, jump to that end, because I make some dramatic changes and that is to the enclosure itself, and that is due to the size of this Rex. It is obviously far too big, and as we add in the other side here, now to give that idea of this thing moving through the paddock, the left foot had to be resting on the ground. So it was done in a very similar way, except if you could imagine that right foot had just been a block lower and had extended the toes as if they were touching the floor. So we bring down this foot and bring it out the other way, just again to give that idea of a bit of life and a bit of movement to this big wooden structure, and then we add in this nice flat foot on the ground. And this also kind of adds, for that sake of variation in the episode, if we had both legs the same way, it would have been just another thing I kind of skip midway through the episode. But because I kind of wanted to commit to this kind of full block to block thing, I wanted to make sure this left foot was something I didn't miss. Now, obviously, this is another long episode. We've had 2 long episodes here back to back, and that's something obviously that's going to change. We had the previous long episode because we'd had such a long time off. I just wanted to get back into it and get through as much as I could in one episode, and this one's much longer because obviously there's much less editing and there's a lot more footage to get through. So here we can see me adding in that nice flat foot, and I do think the flat foot works a lot better than the other one, but again, it's just that idea of variation and that idea of movement that I couldn't really change it, as well as I think that left leg works quite a lot better. And now all we have left to do is add in a tail. Now the tail was kind of, with the rest of the body done, was pretty much the most simple thing really. It was just getting the right kind of scale to the idea of that, you know, it thins out. We have to make sure it finally finishes at 1 block wide, or half a slab wide actually I think I finish it at. So all that kind of was important here was making sure it wasn't too short or it wasn't too long. It was getting the length right. So again, the same way we did the body, I kind of build this hollow shell to judge the size and length and do a few edits here and there. And we do come back later and kind of edit the shape of the tail a little bit, but overall this is kind of the idea I was going for. If we had it, you know, lengthways going all the way back, it would have touched the wall on the other side. So I kind of want it to curl around so we could fit the whole Rex into one frame. Now, to get rid of that flat look, again, while the length has to has to gradually decrease, also the width, you know, the fat and the body of the Rex has to do the same. So that was again another bit of judgment here and there for me, kind of just doing some experiments and just making sure it got smaller to not too fast and not too slow. Now, as we come to the end of building the Rex itself, we've got a lot of work left to do on the paddock, but I feel it's a good opportunity for me to explain where we're going to go to in the next Let's Build episode. Now, I don't think the next Let's Build episode will be based in either Jurassic World or Jurassic Park. I think I'm going to go somewhere new. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to be leaving Jurassic Park forever. I'm definitely going to come back and add in more paddocks and more dinosaurs, but I do feel I'm going to start a new series on the side, and that's because, you know, with uni starting and all that kind of stuff, I kind of want to reinvigorate my own ambition and my own kind of love for these series. And after doing these Jurassic episodes now for months, I kind of want to turn my mind to something fresh and something new, so I don't get bored of it. I'd be a bit worried I'm going to get bored of it and lose my enthusiasm for these builds. So I'm actually going to turn, and I think we're going to start a Let's Build Fallout series. Now, what that will consist of, it won't be me going to the games and looking directly for inspiration from them, but what I think I'll do is build my very own vault, you know, my own Fallout vault. Now, that by no means does that mean I'm leaving Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. We're going to come back and we'll do some more builds here, but what doing my own vault will allow me to do is just have a bit of creative freedom again. You know, I won't be building it based off anything really. Like the way we did the castle series a very long time ago now, that castle was my own kind of imagination at work, building whatever I liked, wherever I liked it. And while building something from a film is also great, I feel just being able to do exactly what I want, when I want, will be kind of really beneficial. So we're going to move on and do one of those vaults. Now, back to Jurassic World for a second. You can see here when we're stood at the window, the T-Rex is kind of level with the window, and obviously that has a lot of problems. One would be, you'd think the Rex could probably break through this log. So with World Edit's help, I've dropped the whole paddock down 10 blocks, then come in and kind of made this kind of nice, uneven, kind of natural landscape, which is something you might imagine one of these paddocks having. It's not going to be perfectly flat, is it? So that's what I've done, and added in this dense, kind of much more sporadic tropical jungle. And with that, we now add in some final details to kind of accommodate our Rex. One was this little cage on top, and this little cage, you see it in the background of the film, is where a park employee throws a flare from, and the flare lands next to this little thing here, which has obviously the T-Rex's food waiting for it. And with those two final details in, we've actually come to the end of this episode. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed following along with this build, and if you looked back in the second there, really briefly, my other T-Rex popped into view, the one I've been using as the template for this episode. But with that being said, I'm now going to move on and start with my kind of vault build, and we'll come back in a couple of weeks and build a brand new paddock within our parks. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.